go to Turkey, he went to Egypt. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Club. So pleased to have you join us on this Sunday. And with war clouds looming, that's what we are going to be discussing today. And we're also going to be discussing the BJP Manifesto. I'd like to welcome my guests, Sandeep Ghosh and Pallavi Ghosh, and of course, wish them a very happy New Year.
Yeah.
It's called
It's a new year for many people, so I think we will not restrict it to the Bengalis, though we have a very large, I think, section of Bengali viewers. But we will wish everybody who's celebrating today or those who celebrated yesterday a very, very happy New Year and begin on that auspicious note.
Happy New Year once again, everybody. And let's start with the politics of it, because our diva is, of course, running late, despite my threats. So let's start with the politics. Pallavi, you met with the finance minister earlier this week, or rather just yesterday.
I had a jet set life, so I left home at 1 in the morning and I took a 5 o'clock flight. I reached at 8. Then I chased her. Then I found her in that coconut thing. And then I took that 10 o'clock flight and I was back home by 3 a.m. And she was on the same flight as me. So it was very hectic, but it was very well worth it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. She ever watch us? I think occasionally.
But there was someone on the flight who tells me, "Oh, I've seen you." So I was very happy. I said, yeah, TV. No, ma'am. I see you on that club every Sunday. So I said, oh my God.
This club business, if they say that I see you at the club every Sunday.
That is an obscene gesture, Abhijit.
He gave you hearts. What's wrong with that?
Look.
How does one do that? How do you do that kind of stuff?
How do you do that?
Just blow
No, but why do hearts?
No, he's programmed this thing, yeah.
How are the hearts coming?
He's programmed it, and now his thing is stuck. So don't
now get down to business now.
Let's start. Okay, so BJP released its manifesto today. Prime Minister, of course, spoke about the points. Sandeep Ghosh, what were for you the most dominant aspects of this manifesto?
For me, the dominant aspect is, I think he clearly steered off all these issues of caste, creed, and doles, took the discussion to totally another level, make it more futuristic, and what it holds for the future generation. But that was not just kite flying. You see, where the beauty of BJP's communication lies, he roots it in what has happened in the past 2 terms. So that's why, even before, I don't know whether you saw that bit, I think it's a very strong visual messaging. They had 4 people come on stage, 4 people who had benefited from different schemes of the Prime Minister earlier, So there was this a person who was a street vendor. There was obviously the tribal woman who had benefited in the Chhattisgarh thing. There was this lady who had benefited from electricity and gas and the rest of it, and I forget the 4th one. So that was like kind of showing, demonstrating that whatever I'm talking is not fictitious or there. So that's a very strong messaging. And thereafter, everything you say, you see, what I shouldn't stray into what to tell that what his competitors don't get. See, Indian population has now totally sold on the benefits of digital India, digitization. So when he today talks of new forms of digitization, giving the e-Shramik card for the informal sector workers, that registers with people. When he is talking about 5G, 6G, that is registering with people. They know it is not that some strange number. So therefore, there is that whole continuity element by which he's showing that what are they proposing to do. Another beauty, of which I think even from a management perspective, I learned this tremendous, insight that we have built 4 crore houses in the last 2 years. But even people who have benefited from those houses in the last 10 years, their families have grown. There are other family members who are now ready to move out and they want their own home. So that one bedroom or one room apartment is no longer good for them. So therefore, we are enhancing this program apart from covering newer people. There will be also this lot of people. I think that is the kind of thinking which differentiates Modi government, that kind of detailing. And, every bit, I'll end by the last bit. Last time, I don't know if you recall, on 2019, the press conference which was there at the end of the campaigning, Mr. Modi didn't speak much, but at the beginning he said that people don't understand the amount of planning it takes, every little thing, where the day we started, from where we started, and the day we are ending, where we are ending, and there is a very clear messaging. So similarly, today being for Ambedkar's birthday, that was a very, very strong messaging for all those who are talking about either the Dalits or they're talking about the Constitution being in threat and danger, to show that, we value Ambedkar much more than any of you do. So everything is, I think, very, very carefully planned to a meticulous detail.
Professor, one question's already come in from our viewers. Shantaram, he's asking, and I think it's important. He's asking us that why is there nothing for the middle class in the BJP manifesto? Do they take the middle class for granted?
Look, let's face this. I mean, given the amount of resources are fairly limited and the fact that we've been traveling through rough patches so far, the amount of resources that this government has, in a sense, is not as much as they would like it to be. The middle class is most benefited not when it gets taxes, SOPs and taxation. It is benefited when employment opportunities expand, when opportunities like this, to expand business also grow. And this is what this government has been trying to do all this while. If you look at the infrastructure push, why is the government investing so much in infrastructure? It wants to crowd in private investment, which itself, in a sense, is going to bring in jobs. It is laying stress on manufacturing, which will, in a sense, try to bring in those particular jobs which are high paying. Why is it going for startups? Why is it basically pushing high technology? And it's not just pushing high technology and manufacturing with taxation SOPs. You have PLI schemes, which are actually now drawing in investment, big ticket investments, high technology investments into this particular field. But there is one particular thing I want to take off where Shwandip basically left off. It is true that the government program, the manifesto, is rooted in what is already being done. But it is also extremely smart. Look, the India stack, in a sense, has proved itself. We saw that during COVID, we were able to distribute money, we were able to distribute rations, and long after that, we did it in a matter of weeks. The United States is still writing checks. Now what the government has done, it has said that we will provide rations to 80, families with stretched to 80 crore people. Now, the Congress foolishly enough said, okay, that means there are 80 crore people under the poverty line. You know what the government is doing? The government, in a sense, is taking a compulsion that it has and turning it into its advantage. What is the compulsion? The government of India, through its FCI, procures far more grain than it needs to. Now, if you are procuring far more grain, spending a lot of money, it is best to distribute some of that grain to people, of a certain income level. What does that do? This is not your universal basic income, but by giving people food, you ensure that they have money left over to purchase, to buy other stuff. This is the kind of smart thinking where the resource outgo is fairly limited, but the impact that is created is massive where the government wins. It's announced insurance for elderly people. Now health insurance is a contingency left thing. 5 lakhs may sound big, but it's not you're handing out 5 lakh rupees. That will happen if there is an illness. So you are able to bring a lot of people under coverage. You ensure that they feel safe if should a contingency arise without actually having to spend that particular amount. You will spend that amount only when that contingency arises. And these are the kind of smart moves where the government has leveraged the digital infrastructure of India in order to bring a lot of people under coverage of social welfare schemes without actually spending all that money. Number one. Number two, it's also futuristic. It's basically, this is a manifesto that caters to all. That if you are dynamic, you want to set out for yourself, set out into business for yourself, we are there to help you out. So this manifesto is complete and it's clever. Complete because it, I think, covers every aspect. Clever because if you look at the financial implications of this manifesto, it is in a sense already structured into our budgets. There are no freebies out here. At least none of the freebies that would actually entail outflows of expenditures other than what the government is already doing. And that sets it apart from the Congress manifesto. The Congress manifesto is freebies. It is not based on what Congress has already done. This is not based on freebies, but it basically expands your social security coverage. Remember, people often forget the bulk of Indians, in a sense, lie outside the ambit of the state. They don't depend on the Indian state for their income. So when you increase social security coverage, they are actually, it's a relief for them. If you look at a lot of people who basically criticize this particular government, many of them, like me, in a sense, are government servants. Not purely government servants, but we get our salaries from the government. So for us, this old pension scheme, etc., matters. But the bulk of Indians who are outside this particular scheme, all that is being given substantially enables or increases their welfare. And this is the kind of smart thinking that which puts BJP and Modi far ahead of its competitors.
Okay, but Professor, again, I mean, like one of our viewers has asked us, what about rationalizing the tax slabs for the middle class? Why can't something like that have been done? Something that feels like, even if resources are not being spent on these doles or giveaways or freebies or whatever you want to call them, what again, the question remains, and maybe AIM can come in on this.
Just
The question
one
remains,
point,
AIM.
Advaita, we must correct. The definition of middle class is changing, and that's what the Prime Minister is going on saying. It's middle class are people like you and me who like to believe it's for us,
Yeah.
middle class is a state of mind rather than the state of your budget or economy. So I think that is where you say it's very minuscule. His bigger concern, as he said, is people whom you have lifted from poverty, they don't slide back into poverty. That will be lethal for the state. So it's a question of prioritization too. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mitrasol. Comrade Mitrasol.
Yes. What is the question again?
Tax slabs, rationalization of tax slabs.
See,
Just the middle class, Abhijit. There is a feeling that what's in it for the middle class, and since you are the, the symbol of middle class, yeah, on our panel, we just wanted to ask you.
yes. So you see, it's quite clear what the government's been trying to do over the last 10 years. For the lower segments of society, for the lower classes, what they need is, see, there is extraordinary levels of insecurity. They don't know if they get old and sick, what are they going to do? So they need schemes like Ayushman Bharat. Okay, they need toilets, they need electricity, because once you've given everybody the basic platform, after that it becomes uh, that fundamental insecurity goes, that what the vulnerability ratio, as it's called, because you can get people out of poverty, but they're just one death in the family away from vulnerability. It reduces that vulnerability of destroying the family after you're gone and things like that. And the mental peace it gives you is just we haven't been born in those circumstances.
Yes.
So we can't even gauge what's happening out there. For the middle classes, something very different is being done. Okay. Excuse me. The first one is this whole thing where your regulatory systems and everything gets improved so you can start doing business better. You know, all the tax schemes that are being given for the middle class, what are they aimed at? They are aimed so that you increase your savings, you invest in mutual funds and retirement pension schemes and things like that, in which case you get huge tax deductions, so that you create, so the middle class is incentivized to create its own sort of social security net, you know, a pension to cater to the dependency ratio. Because remember, we have to think about these things. At one point, India's reproduction rate was something like 3 4. Today it's down to almost replacement rate. In several states it's come down below replacement rate, so under 2.1. Okay, so you have to start looking at things in terms of your stability right now. Sure, the growth has to depend on you yourself. The government can't be giving you jobs. So what it's doing instead is, you look at it as taxes, but look at all the tax exemptions that are given in there if you are willing to save. That is what this government's telling you to do. They don't want you to get credit cards and go berserk and spend berserk. They want you to put everything into, you know, pension schemes, mutual funds, etc., invest, or put it into pension funds so that you get your security network at the end of the day. That's what's being done at the moment. You know, we're asking for a lot up here, when what is being uh, anchored is this part up here. Okay? But I have full faith that in the third term, you will see galloping reforms. Remember, last time the manifesto did not promise privatization, and yet massive privatization did happen, including the crown jewel, which was Air India. This time, you remember the Gautam Chikarmani reforms. I think you've had him on this program as well, which is all the regulatory reforms and things like that that need to happen. Those will start happening. They are talking about increasing manufacturing. There are specific paragraphs in there. I'm going to read it out. If you give me a minute, one second. Let me just read out the relevant part of the manifesto. कि ये क्या है on manufacturing. Um, Empowering small traders, MSMEs, and ONDC. We will encourage small traders and MSME to adopt ONDC and expand their businesses using the power of technology, facilitation. And we already know what a powerful tool facilitation is in terms of, you know, going digital and all of that. Then they are expanding employment opportunities. So they are providing for employment, but it is going to be through industrial growth, which comes in the last point, which is global manufacturing hub and making Bharat a global electronics manufacturing hub by 2023. They're very committed to that form of industrialization. And remember, when you say, I'm going to turn India into a manufacturing hub, a lot of people were saying we need to skip manufacturing and focus on services. They are saying, no, you cannot do that. You cannot have a youth population of 500 million and skip manufacturing. They are saying we are going to get into manufacturing, and that is what is being done. Now you combine this with the small business, small and with the MSME sector promises in the manifesto. What are they saying? They're essentially saying that they're going to be making this much more business friendly for the people.
Yeah, but you know, things like ONDC, since you mentioned, they have to, all these things are very good on paper. They need to get their act together on them. I personally know ONDC has been so far practically a non-starter. So if they really want to generate income and employment through these things, these are very, very great concepts, futuristic concepts, but they need to really have the machinery. What they're so far good at is distributing, you know, your whatever you're doing through the welfare scheme, making the money reach the last mile. Whether it's about manufacturing, whether it's about these kind of entrepreneurial interventions, they need to do better. And also, for all these things, you need the states to play ball. If you are not able to move that, then all these good concepts go for a toss, because you get caught at the bureaucracy and the corruption at the state level. So that is something as a word of caution I would add. Pallavi, we can see at least half of Abhijit's face with his hair. You're keeping your head down. We know got a good hairstyle, but we don't want to see only your hair. Yeah, all the time your head is down and you're pushing
Because
your
you
hair.
all are
How do you-
talking now, so I'm listening and typing also. I'm looking at Twitter.
No, how does he digress from a conversation about the manifesto to Pallavi's hairstyle without even taking a breath in the
Stop
middle?
it now.
You know where my eyes are always fixed. Chalo. Whatever I may be talking. Move on.
Okay. Okay, lots of questions coming in for the professor. I think we can do another
Pays that
session with
person
him
1
later.
lakh to paint a very nice picture and sketch, which makes him look much better than what he is, and he's putting it on Twitter.
Okay,
That's the idea.
Pallavi, quick question. Pallavi, since you interact so much with the Congress, what is their reaction to the BJP manifesto, to their own manifesto, and what do they think is going to happen? I have to say this, guys. I don't know if you're feeling it, but this is the most dull general election, at least I've experienced in my lifetime. It's really dull.
See,
I
think it is
was the first to write about it. Now I
it's going
find
to be stretched
everybody
out
is
over a
writing
very
the
long
same
time.
thing.
And second thing is
I
people
wrote about
think
it
that
10
they
days
know what's
ago.
going to happen.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
I
Yes.
said I was the first one to write about it, and some of your friends, Pallavi,
Sandeep,
they
can we
piled
stop
on to
making
me.
this all about you
No.
all the time?
No, but they all piled on to me. Very nasty comments from some of your right-winger Sanghi friends about my piece
So if
last
you're
week.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
victim mode
social
has to
media,
come.
you expect people to like you all the time. It's also because it's a long, drawn-out election, and there's a presumption that we know what the result is going to be all about. So I think basically it's that. And but the Congress's reaction is predictable. First of all, Rahul Gandhi's tweet came in, and he said that there's nothing which has been said about price rise and unemployment. Manipur also, that's what they're saying. No one is even talking about Manipur. The Prime Minister never ever mentioned Manipur. So they've given it a thumbs down. They are saying it's not much. I mean, I was on this show today because I was anchoring with Mr. Ratan Salda, and I asked Ratanji, what do you think about manifesto? And I kind of agree that it's largely our chatter. We just talk among ourselves, but I don't know how much the voters even get impressed by manifesto. I mean, there are 2-3 points which we know in the manifesto, like the Uniform Civil Code. We all know if the BJP comes, they would want the UCC to be implemented. It's also very clear that one nation, one election is something which they're definitely looking at. So no surprises there. But I agree. I mean, I think what is impressive is that they've not announced any freebies. Ultimately, if they come back to power, they'll have to give the money and all of that stuff. So they've not announced any freebies. They've absolutely made it very clear that we don't believe in the caste census. And, everyone is equal. And they chose the day. Today, the day was chosen. One, of course, that massive Dalit outreach, Ambedkar Jayanti. And second, of course, to make the point that we are the ones who are actually going to be protecting the constitution, because according to the constitution, everyone is equal. You don't make any differentiation on the basis of caste, creed, and religion. So that optics, I think the BJP chose.
But Pallavi, I would one point I'll say, I think that today the interest in the manifesto in the public is far greater, and that is again an achievement of BJP, because earlier manifesto people used to just ignore. But last two manifestos, since they have delivered against those and shown that these are the things we had promised and this is what we have done, people take it more seriously. And the second point about this continuity, Advaita, I'll look at Ram Mandir issue. Everybody said, okay, Ram Mandir is done and dusted. But Modi today talks about how they will take this Ram Divas or whatever, Ram Lala Divas across the world. Rahul Gandhi makes some statement in Coimbatore that Tamil is another language, etc. But look at when they talk of Tamil, or Tamils, everyone will say, they talk about it and say where they're going to take it through the Tamil Sangams, this and that. They're talking through. It's not just there for lip service. And those things people do pick up.
No, but Sandeep, I'm sorry, but they are also saying it because the elections, the first phase of polling is in Tamil Nadu on 19th. And, I have come back. I mean, just
Modi has been consistent about Tamil. Have you, do you know about Tirukal? He even got Gujarati translation. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sandeep,
No, so what
tell
I'm saying
Pallavi
is
finish.
that let's also understand why is it that the manifesto mentioned it. It's clearly an outreach on polling day for
Sure.
90. And if the BJP will still have a long way to go when they can convince civilians or in South states that BJP is not going to be a northern party. I think what can work for the BJP is the fact in down south that here is a man who's actually going to put one thread across the country through the double engine ki sarkar. And the fact is that the development projects are not going to be just north specific. He's going to do, I mean, whatever schemes he's going to come out with, if in case the third term happens, are going to be benefiting the south as much as it benefits the north. So that is going to be the narrative.
No, but one thing is clear. You see, the Sangh and the BJP, and certainly Modi, they've always tried to bring Tamil into the Indic fold, whereas the Dravidianists have always insisted this is distinct, separate. What the Sangh has always tried to do is it's not separate; it's part of the larger Indic, culture fold of languages, and that is why its inclusion in the BJP's manifesto is extremely important. And this is something that will be played out not just in this election, for quite some time to come. You will have the DMK and its ideologues trying to say, look, we are separate, and you will see the Sangh trying to say, no, you're not separate. Tamil is very much a part of Indian culture, Indic culture. Tamil and Sanskrit have always been related. This is a battle that's going to continue, and it will be interesting.
And RSS is not a new phenomenon. A lot of people in the north think there was no RSS present in the south. RSS is present, and RSS had very strong pockets, like whether you talk of Madurai, whether you talk of the Kongu Nadu, those places, and the entire whole movement of Kanyakumari and everything which happened. They won the Kanyakumari seat once, candidates. So therefore, this is nothing new. And what BJP is obviously not trying, people will jump at the end of the thing to say, oh, they got only a couple of seats or not got any seats at all. Their whole idea is to lift the vote share. And that is what will take them to the tipping point somewhere. So when Modi is talking in 2024, he's looking at 2029 and beyond, or 2032
Yeah.
for state elections.
Okay, so that's that, and just to say that the RSS actually the highest number of shakhas is in Kerala, so it's very much present in the south. But moving on to Israel and Iran, AIM, I just want to say that we're so happy that you're back and safe and sound. That's on a very serious note. Jokes aside, I think it was very close for you to be caught up in this. So
We actually wanted to stay on so that we would get caught up in this because it's on a once in a
But you said
lifetime.
you're going to dance for us today.
Yeah, I will.
Please don't.
Okay.
Please don't. Please don't. No, no, not now, not now. After the show.
Let him,
So this
na.
is my
no,
dance
after
of
the
peace.
show,
Okay, this is my dance.
when
of
we close the
peace.
show.
No. I need to do my dance of peace for the
No, that will be
manifesto.
the item number at the last end of the show, like they'd have those, I think, Hindi movies now.
Yeah.
These are the waves of peace, making their way slowly to the shores of the Middle East. And these are the waves of love that should exist between all mankind. And these are the waves of war which will sink us if we don't love each other. Thank you.
A good performance, I
Bravo.
must
Thank
say.
you so much.
Bravo.
Good, one of your best.
Excellent performance. Excellent.
One
Wonderful.
of the best.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Bravo,
And-
bravo. Thank God it's over. Thanks to him, it was when the Indian embassy issued that advisory restricting Indian citizens' movements. Was thanks to his dance he did a couple of days before he left
Thank you.
Israel.
So,
But
what happened was we were, see, most of us in that group were news people. And we wanted something to happen while we were there. And it just so happened that it happened the day after we come back from Israel. Okay. So, this was very
Fishy. Very
unfortunate
fishy.
that happened after. And, I think we should
This-
all spare a thought for that poor Arab girl, a 10-year-old Bedouin girl in the Negev desert who lost her life. One person was killed. In spite of over 350 missiles coming in, one person was killed, and it turned out it was a Muslim Arab Bedouin girl. And that in many ways sums up this entire conflict, that every side has used the Palestinians in such a reckless manner to forward their own, national and geopolitical interests. And the person who always ends up paying the price is the Palestinians, or the Arabs in this case. So it's really quite sad. But let's look at what happened. There's wins and fails here for everyone. All of this now, if you go by the Iranian story, where this begins is on sometime last week, 2 weeks back, uh, uh, Israel targeted the consular section of the Iranian embassy in Damascus, and it killed two major generals of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, staying out there. Okay. Um, Now, the Israelis never admitted responsibility for it. Iran broke a significant rule that it wanted to retaliate. It should have probably done so through proxies, but it did so directly. Okay, which has pretty much upped the ante. Now, this is the story Iran wants you to believe. Now, the question is, what were those guys doing in the IRGC office in Damascus? The civil war is over. They were clearly coordinating Hezbollah's rocket and terror campaign in the north of Israel, and Israel had a right to take it out. And you want to go all the way back in history, who started this entire acrimony between Israel and Iran? Iran had the biggest Jewish population in the Middle East till 1979. Okay, in 1979, the new Iranian government decides that Israel is an enemy. For no rhyme or reason, Israel did nothing to Iran. They decide Israel is an enemy and to sponsor all kinds of terror campaigns and whatnot against it. Hijackings, bombings, God knows what under the sun. So, you create the problem, and then, you pick out certain parts of this and claim that, oh, it was Israel that did this. Israel was retaliating for something that has gone on in its north, that has claimed lives in the north. And so now Iran wants you to believe it's retaliating for an Israeli action. But Israel is going to respond. The Israeli population is not going to keep silent if that's a democratically elected government. If it does not respond, it has its own people to answer to. The problem is Biden is so much in the dancing in the lap of the Muslim Brotherhood because his extreme wing is completely intersectional with the Muslim Brotherhood. They do not want to see a retaliation happen. So he's leaning down very hard on Israel to not retaliate. I don't think Israel is going to listen. I think Israel is going to retaliate in some form or fashion. I just don't know what it is.
I think the problem
But
is far
Abhijit,
more.
also along the same lines, whatever they were doing in the embassy there, etc., they obviously were there. The generals who were taken out in that strike, but at the same time, Iran has been under a lot of pressure to have a response to this.
No, Iran, can get away without with any pressure, because see, no protest in Tehran happens without the stamp of approval of the mullahcracy out there. So everything is organized by the local mullah in the street. He brings people out and organizes them. They create this pressure to show that they have to respond to pressure, kind of thing. You see, so Iran was under no pressure to respond.
Absolutely.
They just responded because they felt they needed to make a show, a song and dance of it, which is fine, but then be ready to pick up the cost. You see, Hamas was willing to impose a certain cost on Israel, but they weren't willing to pick up the cost of the retaliation. Now get ready. I mean, part of growing up is to bear the consequences of your actions.
You see, the problem is, I
But
think,
isn't it, Professor, now haven't we also reached a point, Professor, where Israel should also take a step back and view the consequences of its actions as well?
look, Israel can respond in different ways. I think one of the things that Israel can do is basically quietly arrange for the neutralization of the section or sections who basically see. I believe what Hamas did on that particular day had the hallmark of an Iranian operation. The entire see, the use of technology, intermediate technology to beat Israel's high technology is something that the Iranians, in a sense, have done before. And the entire operation to me looked like something that had the imprint of Iran. So for us to expect that Israel would not do something was foolish, and Israel did. Whether it's for what happened on October 7th or what they were doing in northern Lebanon, I wouldn't know, but they did something. Having done something, as Abhijit said, the Iranians had a choice of doing something by proxy. They chose to do something public. Now, having done something public, Israel also needs to do certain things. Now, Israel can announce something public and do what it wants to do, or it can, as it has before, arrange for the neutralization of certain people it believes are inimical to Israeli interests. For example, quite a few persons who are associated with Iran's atomic program, nuclear program, have been neutralized by Israel. This has been going on for quite some time. Israel does not make a song and dance about it. Iran does from time to time. But then there's an embarrassment because the Akhund regime is unwilling to show to its people that it's basically useless against the activities of the Israeli Mossad. But problem is far more serious. You have a theocratic regime in Iran. That theocratic regime, in a sense, for its existence and its credibility, must show that Israel is an enemy. You see, what happened in 79 was, in a sense, path-breaking. You had an ideological regime, had a coming in of an ideological regime, which had to show that they had enemies. And one of the enemies that they had to show was Israel, because they want to show it's not just a Shia regime. It's a regime that speaks for all Muslims, particularly Muslims that they believe are tortured, are oppressed. And the most visible part of that happens to be the Palestinians. So one of the agenda points and the action points of the regime, the mullah regime in Tehran, is to continuously play up the Palestinian issue. And given the fact that the Arabs, in a sense, the Arab monarchies, in a sense, are stepping back, is to intervene in that particular space with funds, with training, so that they are able to do something. And again, as in 1979, when for a brief period of time Khomeini was speaking on behalf of the Muslim world, they also want to get into that particular space. Why are they doing it? They're doing it largely for their domestic consumption, because the support base, in a sense, has to be showed up by telling them, look, it's not just within Iran, but also outside Iran that we are doing certain things. Now, this coalition, the theoretical and the theological credibility being given by the mullahs, the arms and the muscle and the hoods being supplied by the IRGC, this particular coalition is potent. It's not, unlike the Chinese CCP, it's not being able to deliver growth, but it is able to deliver oppression, because a significant portion of the Iranian population's support, which is required for this regime's maintenance, is had through activities of this particular kind. So Iran is not going to stop.
But don't
Iran will keep continuing to do what it will do. And Israel will also continue
Professor,
to do what it
just to come in here, just to come in here, it's also a very sanctioned country. So the kind of growth that it needs to offer to its populace is not something that it's going to be able to do very easily. So this kind of response is also, in a way, assuages the people who are baying for blood because of what's happened. And the other thing also, AIM, before I go to Sandeep Ghosh, if you can just come in.
One second. Iran is sanctioned by the Western economies. Iran can always do business with China.
Correct.
Iran can always do business with Russia. You see, it's Iran's internal economic policies also. They talk about sanctions a lot. It's also their internal economic policies, which are extremely restrictive, which has also contributed far more to keeping Iran down than these particular sanctions. Sanctions means you divert trade. You don't trade with Western countries. You don't trade with Americans.
No, but you also have limited access. You also
to what? Limited access to what?
You also have limited access to raw materials, Professor, to things that you will need
materials?
For true
what is the
production.
What is the raw material?
There isn't that easy. there isn't that easy flow of things that you have when you're not a sanctioned country in an increasingly
What is the
globally
raw material?
interconnected world
Advaita,
where we
Advaita, 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 what is the raw material Iran requires that is not had in countries other than the countries sanctioning Iran? Look, sanctions in a sense does damage, but the Iranian regime in a sense has used the sanctions to basically undermine the arguments of their own inefficiency. It is a very inefficient government.
Yes.
Let's face it, it's a very inefficient government with the kind of oil that they have and the markets for oil that they exist. You see, for them to be still stuck at where they are is Iranian genius. It is not the United States, it's not Western Europe, which is responsible for Iran's economic woes for a long period of time. During Ahmadinejad's foolishness, it became very, very serious. But apart from that, I think Iran had everything going for it, except for the Western countries. Don't trade with them, trade with the rest of the world. That Iranians were unable to do. And for that, the Iranian regime is responsible, not the Americans, not the Canadians, and not Western Europe.
Okay. AIM, just coming back to you, can you explain the dynamics of the Sunni Shia combo that we see with Iran and Hamas? Because that confuses a lot of people.
Look, it shouldn't really, because there are some Sunni groups which are completely alienated from the Sunni world. You want to look at this as a Sunni Shia thing. It's really between Wahhabi monarchies and republics. It always has been. So remember, at one time, Iran was also a monarchy and it used to get along fantastically well with Saudi Arabia. Iran was, in fact, the prime focus of American diplomacy in the region and American military power projection in the region. Iran used to get whatever it wanted, sometimes even before American troops used to get certain things. Iran used to be the favored partner, not Israel, not Saudi Arabia. Okay, Israel became the favored partner after 67, but the Pahlavi king was the favored partner for a very long time, even before that. Okay, so what ends up happening is, even at that time, the Saudis had a huge Cold War happening with Egypt, which was trying to bring in Arab republicanism everywhere. Okay, now what you see in Iran is actually Muslim republicanism. It's a different version of Nasserism, that was secular, so-called secular republicanism. This is religious republicanism, which the monarchies will not tolerate. It is suitably dressed up in Shia Sunni because Iran wants to play that game, and it has lots of Shia pockets here and there to weaponize in that sense. But it was never called the Shia revolution. It was called the Islamic revolution in Iran, because they wanted that the Shah's leadership of the Muslim world, they wanted to continue, right? So all of this basically has come to a head where we have the Muslim Brotherhood, which kind of believes in a Sunni Muslim, I won't say republicanism, but a sort of Sunni Muslim theocracy in that sense, minus monarchies. For them, monarchies are dirty. They don't want monarchies. So the Sunni monarchies hate all Muslim Brotherhood linked movements, one of which is Hamas. And it is for the same reason that Iran, though it hates Sunni republicanism in that sense, it is willing to get along with it. See, there's a balance of threat. You get along with whoever faces the same threat. Both of these people are hated by the Saudis, therefore they find it easy to come together. So Hamas, which is a Sunni organization, and Iran, which is a Shia country, find it perfectly okay to come together, just like Iran was helping Al Qaeda and ISIS throughout the Afghan insurgency. Right? They were quite happy to. They were fighting ISIS in Syria, but they're very happy to help ISIS elements in Afghanistan. So they always find this micro-balancing. See, they've never been bogged down by ideology in that sense, the way India is. They're happy to do micro-balancing, atomic balancing, whatever you want to call it, anywhere. Okay. So that's a very important thing. I also wanted to show you these images. You know, this is me at the shrine of the nuclear scientists in Tehran. The nuclear scientists who got assassinated by the Zionist entity, you see. Such great martyrs. I was crying at their grave in Tehran and commemorating them, you see. Yes. And this was me out there. As you can see, I'm completely distraught and completely broken down in grief. And yeah, so uh, yes. So I was very, very sad and upset going there and, reliving the memories of those martyrs and their Ali and Hussein like martyrdom.
Okay, Sandeep, coming to you, what are the chances of this escalating?
See, that's the whole problem. People, like Abhijit wrote in his long post, that sooner or later Iran's going to grow nuclear. And to what extent you can really do gamesmanship with these guys, provoke, I think that's a very, very risky proposition everywhere. And to what extent is, and today what's happening is a lot of people are doing things because of their own domestic compulsions. How much, to what extent Netanyahu is upping the ante because of this? Why is America taking a certain stand that again is linked to the Biden re-election and their internal vote constituency? So in all this thing, and Iran is therefore a very, very unpredictable customer to deal with. And what the professor said, they are in a kind of situation, unlike, almost like Pakistan, but I think they're far better off than Pakistan when they couldn't care less about sanctions. They are much more happy with whatever raw material, the natural resources they have, and they know that they will always find takers and for those natural resources, and probably just undercut prices and sell there, and in the process their regime also makes a lot of money through those kind of deals. So they are not particularly hassled, and the people, people also have lived a certain life. They have gotten used to it. So very little, I think, is at stake for them in terms of imposing costs on Iran. When people talk of imposing costs on Iran, I don't think it really matters for them. Unlike it's almost like us saying that we'll be imposing costs on Pakistan. I mean, we'll say a few more unknown men, few more these things have happened. Kya badi baat hai? We are continuing our life the way it is. So it's a bit like that, I think. And when your enemy doesn't have, or adversary or enemy, whatever, couldn't care less about what's in it for them, then yeah, you could be firing on a blank space. So that's the worry. But I personally feel within all this madness, there is a method. There are back channels, several channels which keep on happening. So things may not go totally out of control. And
Let's
especially because people have learned from the Ukraine mistake, America said that they really cannot, the world cannot afford another ongoing this kind of, you know, destabilization or continued war of attrition.
Okay, Abhijit needs to go, so I'm just going to quickly get his last thoughts on this. Abhijit, what will it take to de-escalate the situation at this point?
A lot of American pressure on Israel, which frankly I think would be counterproductive. You can maybe tell the Israelis to not uh, retaliate openly, but you can't prevent them. I don't think any American government can prevent them from retaliating covertly. And I think Israel is going to extract a very, very high price for what happened this morning.
So you think tonight we'll see something, or tonight should be a night?
So the question was, will we see it tonight? And I said, tonight is based on American pressure. Nothing can stop Israel from retaliating. American pressure will stop Israel from retaliating overtly tonight and maybe for a few months. But even American pressure cannot prevent Israel from retaliating covertly down the line.
Well, I
There
hope.
is this,
Yeah,
there,
go ahead.
see, there's a
Thanks,
problem
AI.
out there. If you look at retaliation, who bears the consequences? The mullah regime is okay with the Iranian population bearing the consequences. But the moment you start targeting IRGC senior personnel, you know, they may get a signal. You see, Iran respects power. If that power is focused on decision makers in Iran, it respects that particular power. Sanctions serve to hurt the common Iranian people. And that is why the effectiveness of sanctions has been fairly limited. I suspect what Israel will do is to start targeting section leaders, especially those who planned this entire thing. And Israel's ability to hit them has been unparalleled. It's as if they operate without restrictions in Tehran. How they do it is genius of Mossad or Shin Bet or whatever. But they have been able to do it, and I believe they will do it. It will
Okay,
not
and
be.
I have one final question for both of you.
No, one last thing.
Yeah.
If Israel believes that Iran is on the verge of getting nuclear weapons, I fear Israel will attack.
And I have one final question. How should India is friends with both countries, Iran and Israel. How should India, and maybe Sandeep can come in and last words to Professor. Sandeep, what do you anticipate India's response is going to be? Should this escalate further?
See, India will not, bring any pressure overtly on Israel. I think we are today very clear of our situation. India may try. India has got a good equation with Iran, so India could be one of the channels through which there can be some talk happening. I'm not too sure if Professor would agree, but India has been supportive of Iran in different situations. So we do have, I think, some standing with them. And so that's what I think India will do. India will again, if there is voting, etc., India will abstain. India will not make any strong public statement on this. India cannot also at the same time afford to, alienate Iran, because we do our business with Iran on the side. But so India could play actually a positive role. And I think in these sort of situations, people will start appreciating India's role not on the global table, but in the Middle East, we are becoming certainly factor to reckon with. I wouldn't say a force to reckon with. India has hugely increased its relevance and influence in the Arab world, and that is where.
Yeah. And I think also globally, Prime Minister Modi is now the senior most elected leader in the world, which is incredible. So I think he has a lot of stability when it comes to leadership and being part of the global stage. So I think there is a role that he can play at some point, and India can play at some point. Professor, do you think that's possible?
I'll just add to that, Advaita, people like America and all don't care much for who's the senior most or who's there. But
But
you
it's
know
not.
what? No, but what is important is what they will care for. They know Modi is today influential in the Arab world. People listen to him. That's why he's even
That's the
able
point.
to extract things for us, and that's why they will pay attention to Modi. They'll give him greater weight, and
I don't
therefore.
agree with that, because I feel that America is no more in a unipolar world, and it is no more the big daddy, even though it may want to be, and it certainly has a lot of power and all of those things. But I think it's realizing also that no longer is that sort of American exceptionalism going to hold the way it has in the past. Professor, last comments from you before we wrap up.
Look, India will let the situation play itself out. Both Iran and Israel have taken on positions, have committed themselves to positions from there which will be very difficult to back off. Iran has done certain things for which it will have to bear the consequences. And those consequences will also influence our ability to influence Iran. So it'll be all behind the doors, cloaked diplomacy, where we will try to cool them down and tell them, you want to take it further? You should not take it further. And at the same time, we'll also talk to Israel, you want to take it further? So I'm afraid an exchange of blows will happen. Now, whether that exchange of blows will be at a level which exceeds a critical minimum level so that nothing can be done, or it will be below the level after which we talk and they listen. That I think is extremely important. And yes, India does have influence both with Israel as well as with Iran and the Arab world. I think, given the uh, heat right now, we should keep quiet. It is only when blows have been exchanged that we come in and leverage our relationships with all the parties to ensure that temperatures come down below a particular level. I think that's the best we can do, and I think that is how the Indian diplomacy operates.
All right. And on that note, I want to thank both of you for joining me this evening, as well as Pallavi and AIM. And I want to request our viewers to please like, share, and subscribe. I always forget to say that. So please, and I want to thank our viewers who remind me to say it and say it on the chat so I can share that as well with everybody. But please do like, share, subscribe. And of course, we'll be back as soon as there is news. That's what we're going to do now in the run up to the elections. Whenever there's news, we'll be back. And I think we should talk about Tamil Nadu sometime this week about what's going to be happening there, since it's one of these states going in the first phase. So we'll be back with that, get some interesting panelists who know what's happening on the ground. And see you all soon. Bye for now.
Bye.